Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon pseudo African themed tank, and I just caught myself with another little mishap here. I was looking at the tank and I was kind of watching it up close, and something didn't seem right to me. I like to keep my tanks nice and calm. I like the surface nice and still, but I usually have some movement on the surface, and I usually have some spot of surface agitation. And I looked in there and there just wasn't any. It just seemed so still and calm. The only water I was seeing move around was circulation from my power head. So I put my hand on the filter, and sure enough, it was still as could be. And I went and checked, and it was unplugged. But the plug was just sort of knocked loose. It wasn't actually unplugged. It was just unplugged enough that when I bumped it, it fired up and started running again. And I thought, okay, cool. And I walked away, and it took me a second to realize what I had just done. So I turned around really quick and I unplugged it, realizing that if a filter's been sitting there, stagnant for a couple of days, maybe, who knows, it gets really gross and nasty inside, and you really don't want to just turn that on and flood all of that nasty crap right back into your tank. And that's what I just did. But I only ran it for about a second before I grabbed the plug and unplugged it again, at which point I pulled the filter out. I was about to start turning all the lights off, but of course in a situation like this you've got no choice. So I pulled the filter out, I popped it open, and it reeked. It was foul. So I'm really glad I didn't just plug it back in and say job well done and call it good. So I had to tear it all down and do a full filter cleaning and replace all the pads, and I had to wipe everything down, or not wipe it down, but rinse it off and just get all the funk and nastiness out of it. And I will note, while I was in there, the top two trays, those columns that are supposed to divert the water downwards, both had deteriorated away from the UV lighting on this filter. And by the time I got to the tray at the bottom, the tray wasn't really even that dirty, so the water wasn't even making it to the bottom of the canister when it was running. So I definitely need to rethink my Sun canister filters, and we can do a video and discuss that in its own right later. Getting back to my situation with the tank, once I did put the filters back together and I stacked them in reverse order, so the two bottom trays that had the intact collars on them were now the two top trays, and it will force water down deeper into the filter. So I got to thinking about how long has it been since this tank had a filter running on it, and the only thing I can think is when I put the heater on my brackish tank, or in my brackish tank rather, I had to add a plug, so I added yet another plug strip to the vast array of plug strips I have strung all over the place through here. And when I did that, I must have knocked my filter plug loose, and that has been, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 days now. So this tank has been sitting here without a filter running on it, without me even noticing it, for several days. Now, one of the reasons I don't notice it is because we've got this big 850 gallon per hour power head down here in the corner, and it really moves a lot of water around the tank. You can see the way all these roots are flowing. You can see movement all the time. When you shut the filter off, you don't really notice a whole lot of difference because of the way I've got the flow set up in this tank. So, again, it seems odd that I went 3 or 4 days without even noticing that my filter was not running. But to the credit of the Sun filters, they are so quiet you can't even tell that they're not running. So there you have it, for all of the people who still had a little bit of doubt as to whether or not you can just run a tank with no filtration, provided you set it up properly and provided you understand what you're doing with your nitrogen cycle, and you've got all the proper habitat for the bacteria to live, and you've got the right amount of water circulation, and you've got the right amount of surface area, to tank space, and so on and so forth. You can run a tank without a filter on it. They did it for a long time before there was even electricity. So it is possible, and I've twice now inadvertently proven that by knocking my filter off or leaving it turned off for days at a time. So there you have it. Live and learn once again. That's why I tend to set my tanks up to be sort of idiot proof, because I'm the one that runs them. So we got to make sure they stay alive, even with me in charge. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned a little lesson. I know I have once again. I'm really going to have to start paying attention to this kind of stuff. Please subscribe if you're not already. You never really know what you're going to get with me. Case in point here, this video. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you real soon on the next one.